The story opens with Era, our main character, making an unusual deal. He offers to buy a skill from a stout older woman, a skill she's always considered nothing but trouble. Her skill? Monster Attractor, level 10. She can't believe this young man actually wants it, much less that he's willing to pay real money for something so dangerous. But Era calmly tells her he'll buy it, for 10 million. Of course, she doesn't hesitate. Who would? With both hands, Era clasps hers, sealing the deal. A bright light flares between them as the skill disappears from her list. He hands over a thick bundle of cash and gently suggests she get her skills checked at the church, just to make sure everything's in order. By now, a small crowd has gathered, whispering about this strange young man. Era raises his voice so everyone can hear. If anyone else has a troublesome or useless skill, I'll buy it. Doesn't matter what level. Come find me if you got questions. With that, he continues walking through the marketplace, leaving behind stunned faces. This young man is the collector, the protagonist of our story. But how did he end up here? To answer that, we need to go back to the very beginning. In this world, every person is born with skills, gifts from God. They're part of daily life. Most people have at least 3 or 4. In one quiet rural town, life moves peacefully. At the village well, 2 women chat while a young boy approaches to fill his bucket. That boy, the future collector. Back then, he had only one skill. Just one. Trading, level 1. He hauls up his water and starts to leave, but the women's gossip follows him. What a shame, one says. Only one skill, and it's useless at that. I'm glad my son wasn't cursed like that. Her friend hisses for her to lower her voice, but the boy hears every word. His jaw tightens. He keeps walking, but irritation simmers inside him. A moment later, 2 kids step in his way. Hey, it's the guy with the useless skill, they sneer, shoving at him. Why don't you just leave the village already? But he doesn't back down. He glares right back at them. Funny, your skills are the kind only criminals use. And he's right. The bully's skills were a mixed bag. Coercion, stink, raw strength, tailing, clairvoyance, even healing. When Era snapped back at them, it only made them angrier. One of them swung a fist and caught him on the cheek. Pathetic. You're nothing but your sister's leftovers, they sneered. Bruised and stung, Era trudged home, pressing a hand to his cheek. He knew he couldn't fight strength head-on. That was the bitter truth. Even if it's a weird or troublesome skill, he thought, at least it's better than having one that does nothing. He wiped the blood from his face before opening the front door. I'm home, he called. At a desk in the corner, a beautiful young woman with long flowing hair looked up from her work. His sister. Her face brightened the moment she saw him. She wasn't just talented, she was overflowing with brilliance. From appraisal to drawing, from memorization to fine arts, she had it all. Every single one of her skills was maxed at level 20. Era glanced at the sketch on her desk. Were you drawing something? I've just finished, she said with a smile, holding it up. It was a portrait of the 2 of them, side by side, smiling. He studied it for a moment before lowering his gaze. It's good. As always. His voice dropped. The kids, they call me your scraps again. Instantly, his sister shot up in outrage. What? How dare they call my precious brother something like that? But Era just gave a small, bitter smile. It's true, though. You've got 10 amazing skills in arts and sciences. People keep saying it's a waste for you to stay in this small town. And me? I've only got one skill. A useless one. Trading. His mind went back to when he was younger, the day he first got his appraisal. The examiner had looked puzzled. Trading? Never heard of it, the man admitted, scratching his head. Well, it's your only skill. He handed over the paper, leaving Era with no answers at all. That same day, Era had run home and tried to use it. He placed an apple on the table, stood before it, and called out, Trading? Sell this apple. Nothing happened. Not a flicker, not a sign. He had told his parents right away, hoping maybe he'd done it wrong. But when they heard it failed again, both of them only sighed heavily. What was the point of having a rare skill if he couldn't even use it? To Era, it felt no different from being useless. His parents didn't bother hiding their disappointment either. His mother even sighed, saying she wished he had talents like his older sister. Some parents they are, Era thought bitterly, his chest tightening. Seeing his expression, his sister quickly changed the subject. She reminded their parents that they'd saved up plenty of money from selling her drawings, then suggested they buy a nice house in the capital. Her parents' eyes lit up instantly. With just the 3 of them, life in the city sounded wonderful. Of course, just the 3 of them didn't include Era. But then his sister said something that stunned them. I'll stay here, with my little brother. What? Their mother blurted out. That's ridiculous. The 3 of us should move together to the capital and leave that useless boy here. Why worry about him at all? Era agreed in silence. He thought the same thing. Why should his sister waste her time on someone like him? He only had one skill, and he didn't even know how it worked. But she didn't see it that way. Not at all. To her, staying by his side was the most natural choice. In fact, she seemed happy about it. To her, living together with her little brother was something precious. And so a year passed. The two of them lived alone now. Era still hadn't figured out how to use his skill, no matter how hard he tried. His sister urged him not to rush. Take it slow, she always said, and avoid fights whenever you can. At that, Era flinched. How could he forget the bruise still aching on his cheek? Thankfully, his sister had another skill, pharmaceuticals. She handed him a small jar of ointment, gently dabbing it on his wounds. In an instant, the pain faded, the bruises vanishing as if they were never there. Era gave a wry smile. I'm jealous. I wish you'd give me at least one of your skills. If I could, I'd have done it already, she said softly. Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. When his sister opened it, an older man stood outside. I'll be looking forward to your appraisal today as well, he said warmly. She smiled. I'll see you in the village square. The door clicked shut, and Era frowned. You're doing appraisals for the villagers again? She nodded. Of course. But they're just using you. Era pouted, crossing his arms. Just because you have the appraisal skill doesn't mean they should keep asking without giving anything back. She reached over and patted his head with a gentle smile. Don't worry, I never abandon you. And besides, I believe your skill is valuable. Very valuable. Her words warmed him more than he could admit. In a world where even his parents and neighbors cursed him as useless, her faith was everything. His sister was the only one who truly stood by him. When she patted his head again, Era felt his face warm. Don't do that so much, he muttered, embarrassed. She only laughed softly and moved toward the door. I might be home late tonight. The mayor's relative is visiting. All right, see you later, he replied, watching her go. Deep down, he thought, as long as I have her, I don't need anyone else. Even after she stepped outside, she kept glancing back at him. He had to wave her off with a smile until she finally disappeared down the road. With the house to himself, Era sighed. Guess I'll clean up a bit. If his sister had one weakness, it was tidying up. He picked up scattered trash here and there, and his hand landed on the sketch she'd made earlier. It was a portrait of the two of them, smiling together. He held it carefully, staring at it longer than he meant to. She really is amazing. Time slipped by. Night had already fallen when Era jolted awake on the sofa. He rubbed his eyes, surprised he dozed off. Has she come back yet? He called out. Silence answered him. His stomach tightened. She was still in town. He grabbed a lamp, muttering, she may be older, but she's still a girl. I'll go get her. He stepped outside, expecting to run into her on the way. Instead, what he found made his blood run cold. The village was burning. Flames devoured houses, thick smoke filling the night sky. What? Why? Before he could think, his legs carried him forward, racing toward the square. Sister, I need to find her. But everywhere he turned, he saw bodies scattered on the ground. Neighbors, friends gone. It wasn't an attack. It was a massacre. He tripped, falling hard. When he looked down, his breath caught in his throat. It was the two gossiping women from the well. And beside them, those bullies who mocked him that morning. All of them lifeless. Era gagged, nearly throwing up. His hands trembled. Who could do something like this? Terror clamped down on him, but his worry for his sister was stronger. He forced himself up and ran. And then it hit him. She'd mentioned earlier, the mayor's relative. That was it. She must be at the mayor's house. Era sprinted through the burning streets, his chest tight. When he reached the residence, his worst fears deepened. The yard was littered with corpses. He forced his shaking legs to keep moving, rushing to the front door. It was unlocked. He pushed it open and froze. The entrance hall was a graveyard. More bodies sprawled across the floor, their lifeless eyes staring at nothing. The staircase was no better. Blood stained every step, and severed fingers pointed upward as though beckoning him higher. His stomach lurched, but then, stop, please stop this, a desperate voice rang out from upstairs. Era snapped out his daze, slapping his cheeks hard. Focus. Was that the mayor? If the mayor was alive, he might know where his sister was. The voice echoed again, trembling and frantic. Why are you doing this? Era clenched his fists and forced himself up the stairs, stepping over bodies without looking down. His breath came fast, his voice cracked as he shouted, Sister, are you there? Don't look, don't think, just keep moving. He didn't care if he only had one skill. He didn't care if it was useless, or if his parents and the whole village had cursed him. All he wanted now was for her to be safe. The mayor's voice grew louder. Please, you can have the village. I'll give it to you. Just spare me. Another voice answered coldly. Why would I want a village that's already in ruins? Era reached the door. His hand trembled as he pushed it open. At that exact moment, the mayor's body flew past him, slamming into the wall with a sickening crack. Blood splattered across the floor. Era flinched, catching only a glimpse of the broken man before his eyes shifted to the figure standing inside. His breath caught. It was her, his sister. She looked at him and smiled. "Welcome home, little brother." Era froze in the doorway, confusion clouding his face. "Sister, what's going on here?" Her lips curled into a smirk. "Ah, you mean why everyone is dead?" Her tone was playful, mocking. She stepped closer, her eyes glinting in the lamplight. "It was a simple miscalculation, really. The mayor's relative had a higher appraisal level than I expected. He figured out my secret." Era's throat tightened. "Secret?" Her voice was calm, almost casual. "That I have a plundering skill." The words struck him like a blow. Plundering? He could barely breathe, much less understand. She tilted her head, amused at his shock. "Yes, I've been hiding it all this time, thanks to my concealment and acting skills. I fooled everyone, even you." His mind reeled. "No, this doesn't make sense. This can't be her." She motioned to the heaps of bodies littering the room, her smile widening. "I used appraisal to learn what skills everyone had, then plundered them all for myself. I've already taken everything I need." Which means she spread her arms toward the carnage. There was no reason to let them live. Era staggered back, his vision spinning. "You killed them?" No, you're lying. That's not you. My sister would never." But she only turned her back to him, walking calmly down the blood-soaked stairs. His hands trembled, fear clawing up his chest. "This isn't her. It can't be. My sister is kind. She's gentle. This person isn't her." Suddenly, she stopped and glanced back over her shoulder. Her eyes sparkled with mischief. "You thought I'd kill you too, didn't you?" Era froze in place, his foot halfway down the stair. His heart skipped, and she laughed. A light, cruel laugh that echoed through the ruined house. Then, still chuckling, she continued her way downstairs, as if the massacre behind her were nothing at all. She chuckled, as if reading his thoughts. "Don't look so terrified. I won't kill you. Not yet, anyway." Era's breath caught. What do you mean?" Her smile widened, sharp and cold. "Because your skill is the only one I can't plunder." His mind spun. "What? Why not? What do you mean you can't plunder it?" She stepped back toward him, eyes gleaming with amusement. "That's a good question." As expected of my little brother. From within her cloak, she pulled out a worn book and pressed it into his hands. "Here, a lesson for you. There are plenty of common skills. Strength, coercion, detection. But mine, plundering, only one person in the world can have it at a time. A rare skill." Era's heart pounded as she continued, her tone shifting into something almost like a teacher's. "And then there's your skill. Trading. It's even rarer. An only skill. That means it has never existed before, and it will never exist again. Not in the past. Not in the future. Just you. An only skill," Era whispered, chasing after her as she turned away. "What does that even mean? How do I use it?" She paused, looking back at him with a mischievous grin. "That's right. You don't even know how to use it yet, do you?" Leaning close, she whispered into his ear, her voice low and smooth. For the first time, she told him how to activate it. Then she pulled away, her expression chilling again. "But listen well. At my current level, I can't plunder only skills. That's the only reason you're still alive. Once I travel, grow stronger, and raise my plundering level high enough," she smirked, "I'll take your skill, and then I'll kill you the next time we meet. Until then, polish it well, little brother." Era reached for her desperately, his voice breaking. "Wait, sister." But she was already moving. With a sudden leap, her body blurred. Swiftness, wind magic, skills he didn't even recognize carried her far beyond his reach. He stumbled forward, grasping at empty air. How does she know so much about my skill?" The night swallowed her figure. Era staggered back home in a daze. His heart clung to denial, whispering lies. "If I just go home, she'll be there, smiling, waiting for me." But when he opened the door, the silence was crushing. The house was empty. The only thing left was the drawing she had made earlier that day, two siblings smiling together. He fell to his knees, clutching the picture to his chest as tears streamed down his face. Why would you say you're going to kill me?" His voice cracked, echoing in the empty house. "Just why?" Back in the present era, the collector held a small locket in his hand, its surface worn from years of use. Inside was the faded drawing his sister had made on that fateful day. He stared at it in silence, lost in memories that refused to fade. From across the carriage, one of the passengers leaned over curiously. "Hey, that a picture of your girlfriend?" Era blinked, slowly closing the locket. "No, my sister." The man's expression twisted in awkward surprise. Oh, sorry. Era didn't reply. He only muttered under his breath, the words spilling from him before he realized it. I still can't believe it, even now. Huh? What's that supposed to mean? The man asked, baffled. But Era waved a hand dismissively. Forget it. Just talking to myself. Even so, his chest ached with the same questions that had haunted him for years. His sister, so kind, so full of talents, blessed with skills beyond most people's dreams. Why did she thirst for more? Why did she hide it from him? Why did she slaughter everyone? Why didn't she tell him anything? He tightened his grip on the locket. Despite the fear in her final words, despite the promise that she would one day kill him, he wanted to see her again, to hear her voice, to understand, even if it cost him his life. That was why, ever since that day, he had polished his only skill, the one thing she could not steal, his trading skill. If that was the only thread tying them together, then so be it. With that conviction, Eris stepped off the carriage and walked toward his next destination. Before long, a towering building loomed over him. Inside, winding corridors led him to a particular door, marked and waiting. He knocked once. I'm a collector, he said firmly. I purchase skills that are unwanted or troublesome, skills others would rather discard. The door creaked open, and a figure inside smiled knowingly. Welcome. We've been expecting you, collector. And so begins the story of Era, the collector, and his sister, whose lives were forever twisted by the power of skills. Along the way, he would cross paths with countless others, each burdened with their own cursed or unwanted abilities. Afterward, he settled into a wooden chair inside a small pub on the edge of the market. The warm hum of chatter surrounded him as he leaned back with a sigh. He had long since grown accustomed to this lifestyle, buying, selling, collecting. It was routine now. His gaze drifted outside, where children played in the street, their laughter echoing through the neighborhood. Peaceful. This city, at least, seemed untouched by the kind of tragedy that had shaped his life. Slowly, Era drew out his locket and opened it. Inside, the faded sketch of him and his sister smiled back. He stared at it in silence. So far, all I've done is trade. Buy, sell, collect. It's kept me alive, but his grip tightened around the locket. I still haven't found her. No matter how far he traveled, no matter how many deals he made, he had yet to see her face again. Just then, a voice broke through his thoughts. Are you the one they call the collector? Era blinked, snapping out of his reverie. Before him stood an older man with an unusual air. Books hovered gently at his side, pages fluttering as though alive. Yes, Era said cautiously, tucking the locket away. Good. I'd like to speak with you, privately. A short while later, Era found himself seated in a lavishly decorated home, sipping tea that tasted far too refined for his palate. The sheer scale of the place, with its gilded walls and intricate carvings, unsettled him. He felt out of place, like a stray dog in a noble's hall. Across from him sat the older man, his presence calm but commanding. So, Era began hesitantly. You really wish to sell all of your skills to me? The elder sage nodded with surprising certainty. Yes, all of them, save for one. My memory skill. Era's brows furrowed. This was no ordinary customer. To discard every skill but one. What kind of man would make such a choice? The sage's skill list unfurled before Era's eyes like a tapestry of brilliance. Dozens upon dozens, every single one of them gleaming at level 20. Era let out a low whistle. That's a lot of high-grade skills, sir. You're practically a walking treasury. At this level, every one of these is worth a fortune. The old man's brows lifted slightly. So you can see them. Era smirked. Yeah, bought myself an appraisal skill a long time ago. Comes in handy for this kind of work. His eyes lingered on the glowing lines of text only he could see. But still, level 10 is already considered valuable in the market. And you're sitting on nothing but 20s. If I'm being honest, I can't afford this much stock all at once. The sage leaned forward, calm as still water. 100,000 for everything. Era froze. His fingers tapped nervously against his cup. That was far less than the actual worth. On paper, this was daylight robbery in his favor. But why? He narrowed his eyes. That's generous. Too generous. If I'm going to take this deal, I need to know why. The elder sage gave a small, tired smile. Because I am old. I've spent my life chasing knowledge, hoarding it, refining it, believing it was my duty as one blessed with these gifts. And yet, when the years piled high, I began to wonder, was that truly living? Was that all I was meant for? His gaze drifted to the window, where faint shouts from the streets echoed through the city. So I decided, if I am to shed the weight of who I was, then I must begin anew. As an adventurer, Era stared, speechless. An elder sage, stripping himself bare to take up a sword? Madness, or genius? The old man continued. I have heard of you, the collector who buys and sells skills. If I give mine to you, my slots will be freed, will they not? That made Eris sit straighter. So you know about skill slots, too? Of course. Most are born with 2 to 5. I was born with far more. But emptying them all, that is the only way I can start fresh. Era rubbed his chin, impressed despite himself. And you're planning to fill them again. With adventure basics. The sage nodded firmly. Swordsmanship, physical ability, brute force, recovery, but also concealment, tailing, and at the highest levels possible. His eyes gleamed, sharp despite his years. If I am to walk this new path, I will do so properly. Era let out a short laugh. You don't do anything halfway, do you, old man? Lucky for you. I've got exactly what you're looking for. At last, they sealed the deal. Era extended both hands, and the elder sage placed his own weathered palms into them. A pulse of light surged between them as the collector invoked his trading skill. One by one, the sage's myriad skills vanished from his body and flowed into Era's collection, leaving only a single flicker of power untouched. Memory. When the light faded, the sage sat back, visibly lighter, almost younger, as though he had shed centuries of weight. Era, meanwhile, felt the staggering flood of new power pressing at his limits. Deal complete, Era breathed, steadying himself. I'll admit, you're one hell of a customer. The quiet of the room broke when the front door creaked open. Both Era and the sage turned their heads. A boy poked his head through the doorway. Grandpa. Era's eyes flicked to him instinctively, and in an instant, the boy's skills flared into view. Archery, brute force, keen vision, quick reaction. All high-potential combat skills. The kind any adventurer would dream of. The boy stepped inside, grinning. Are you done talking? I'm heading out tomorrow on my first adventure. Era and the elder sage exchanged glances, then both moved closer. The sage's expression darkened as he crouched slightly to face his grandson. Becoming an adventurer isn't a game. It's dangerous. You would die out there. But the boy puffed out his chest, undeterred. I know, but it's what I want. You're the one who read me those picture books about adventures every night. You made me want this. The sage's face tightened. Regret flickered in his eyes, heavy and unspoken. That was my mistake, he muttered, voice rough. He turned his back on the boy, shoulders stiff. If you've chosen that path, then do not come back here. Ever. The boy froze, then forced a small smile as he looked at Era. Sorry about him. My grandpa's grumpy, but he's really kind, you know? Era said nothing, watching the boy's determined gaze. But in that silence, he understood. The sage wasn't just cutting his grandson off. He was pushing him forward. Don't say unnecessary things. The sage snapped quickly, but the boy only grinned wider. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going. Love you, Grandpa. He waved cheerfully and slipped out the door. Era watched the exchange quietly. Despite the harsh words, it was easy to see the bond between grandfather and grandson was strong. Stronger than either of them wanted to admit out loud. The sage exhaled and turned to Era. You saw my grandson's skills, didn't you? What did you think? Era froze. So he noticed. He hadn't meant to pry, but after years of appraising people out of habit, it was second nature. With a small nod, he admitted, Your grandson's skills are impressive. Perfect for an adventurer, really. The sage's eyes softened for a moment before he looked away, muttering under his breath. I only hope he doesn't lean too heavily on them or let them push him into recklessness. The transaction complete, Era left the sage's home and made his way back toward town. The streets were calm, the hum of the marketplace greeting him once again. Still, his mind lingered on the old man and his grandson. The sage had seemed content with his decision, yet Era couldn't shake the question from his thoughts. Why give up a lifetime of hard-earned, high-level skills just to start over? Why cast it all aside to become an adventurer now, at his age? The question stayed with him, heavy and unresolved, as he stepped back into the bustle of the city. Era mulled over the transaction as he walked. Concealment, tailing, those weren't adventurer skills. At best, they belonged to thieves, spies, or worse. A chill pricked the back of his neck. The thought was ridiculous, yet clung to him. Someone blessed with those skills wasn't supposed to live quietly. The image of his sister flickered across his mind, sobering him. What right did he have to judge? He had never been blessed with skills at all. He clenched his fists. Best not to dwell on it. Still, his steps slowed until he stopped right there in the middle of the street, gazing up at the sky. Maybe he should leave the investigation for tomorrow. The next day, deep in an unnamed forest, a group of young adventurers moved cautiously through the undergrowth. Among them marched the sage's grandson, cheerful and eager, his steps light compared to his companions. One of the older members frowned at his carelessness. "Slow down," she warned, but the boy didn't listen. His eyes had already caught the prize, a nest lined with large, pale monster eggs. "Found it," he grinned, dashing ahead. He barely reached out before the ground trembled. A guttural roar shook the trees. The mother beast towered behind him, fury burning in her eyes. The boy froze, horror draining the color from his face. From the shadows, a figure tensed, ready to break cover, ready to intervene. But before he could, a sword cleaved through the air. The beast collapsed in one strike, cut down by another of the party. "Careless idiot," the swordsman chuckled, puffing up with pride. "Thank you, you saved me," the boy stammered, relief flooding his face. The boy turned to the trees, eyes narrowing. "Strange. I felt like someone was watching us." He laughed it off, scratching the back of his head. Maybe just my imagination, but it wasn't. Behind the trees, a shadow remained still, exhaling softly in relief. His cover was safe for now. The shadow prepared to move again, trailing after the young adventurers, when a hand suddenly tapped his shoulder. He stiffened and turned. It was the collector. And yes, the shadow was none other than the elder sage himself. The collector gave him a knowing look. "So, how did your grandson fare on his first mission?" The sage hesitated before answering. He now carried all the necessary skills of an adventurer. Swordsmanship, raw strength, agility, recovery. Everything except memory, the only one he had kept from his original set. He narrowed his eyes at the man beside him. "Why are you here?" The collector shrugged. "I came to check on you. I'd worry if the skills I sold ended up being misused." That made the old man's frown deepen. How had he not noticed the collector following him? Even with concealment and tailing, both at level 7, he hadn't sensed a thing. The collector smiled faintly, almost teasing. "Simple. I didn't give you everything. I sold you 7 levels, yes, but I still hold 23 more. You won't outsense me that easily." The sage blinked. He had never even imagined skills could be divided like that. "It's thanks to a little something called management," the collector explained. "That skill lets me adjust levels during an exchange, and even store excess skills outside of my own slots. That's how I can carry far more than I should." The old man looked away, silent for a long moment, then muttered, "I didn't know skills could be used like that." He started walking again, but the collector's voice followed him. "Tell me, do you really plan to shadow your grandson like this forever?" The sage stopped, then slowly sat down on a boulder nearby. His expression softened, though his voice stayed firm. "As long as his body holds together, yes. Every single day." The collector frowned. "Isn't that a little much? Why go so far?" The old man's shoulders slumped slightly, and for the first time, the weight of his years showed. "Because it's atonement." His gaze drifted off, far away, as though looking back through decades. "When I was young, I cared only for knowledge. I devoured book after book, convinced I deserved to know everything. And when I finished, I searched for more, never satisfied. My wife and daughter would greet me when I came home at night, but I barely looked at them. I passed them by, cold and distant, because I had no interest beyond my studies. I built a family only for appearance's sake. My heart belonged to knowledge and nothing else. There came a time when my daughter told me she was to be married," he said, his gaze distant. "But I barely heard her. Her joy, her future, it never registered. My ears were deaf to anything outside of books. My wife, my daughter, her new family, I cared for none of it." He drew in a slow, bitter breath. "I had already devoured every book in our kingdom, so I left. I wandered across borders, chasing knowledge in foreign lands, drowning myself in libraries, scrolls, and tomes. And eventually, I reached the end. I had read it all. Every word, every page, every record that could be found." His hands clenched on his knees. "But when it was over, I felt nothing. No triumph, no joy, only emptiness. For the first time, I asked myself, what was all this for? Blessed with so many skills, so much knowledge, and yet what did it mean? What was its purpose?" He lowered his head, voice trembling faintly. "That was when I saw them. A pile of unopened letters, written by my daughter. Letters I had never once touched. I finally opened them. Silence fell, and with every word, the truth cut deeper. I had abandoned her, abandoned them both. Knowledge had filled me, but I had given nothing back. I swore then that I would return, that I would try, however late, to be a father." His jaw tightened as he spoke the next part. "One rainy day, I came back. I stood at my own doorstep, soaked through, and announced my return like a fool expecting welcome. But there was no one waiting, only silence." He swallowed. "I stepped inside, and there she was, my daughter, grown, hardened. She looked at me in shock, then in fury. Her first words weren't of joy or relief. They were venom. She demanded to know why I even bothered to come back now. His eyes glistened faintly, though his face remained hard. She told me my wife was gone, dead. Her husband, too, taken by the epidemic. It was only she and her child left now. And then she laughed, mocking herself more than me. She said, "But who am I kidding? You won't care about that either, will you, father?" The sage fell silent, the weight of his confession lingering heavy in the air. To his daughter's shock, the sage fell to his knees before her. His voice cracked as he begged forgiveness, tears spilling freely for the first time in decades. He admitted, trembling, how blind and foolish he had been, how unworthy he was as a father. But his daughter, pale and frail, only shook her head. "You can't do much for me now," she said softly, her voice breaking. "I don't have long left either, but if you truly wish to atone, then at least be there for my son. Protect him in ways you never protected me." The words struck him like a blade. He rose shakily and followed her into the next room, where a young boy waited, wide-eyed, innocent, still unknowing of the weight around him. "Grandfather," the boy said, reaching out. The sage bent low and took the boy's small hands into his own. That single touch, fragile yet warm, burned itself into his soul. Not long after, his daughter drew her last breath, and with her passing, regret consumed him even more. All the years he had squandered, all the love he had neglected, it could never be undone. No matter what he did now, it would never be enough to erase his sins. And yet, he had made his decision. From that day forward, he would devote everything, every breath, every moment, every last strength to his grandson. Back in the present, the collector quietly asked, "You'd give up even the skills you were blessed with, just for that?" The older man nodded without hesitation. "The only skill I need now," he said firmly, "is the one that lets me remember. The faces, the moments, the family I lost. That memory is worth more than any magic, more than any strength. It's all I have left." The words struck the collector deeply. Almost unconsciously, his hand went to the locket at his chest, the one holding his sister's drawing. At the mention of family's faces and time spent together, he too felt the sharp ache of memory. He could still see his sister's smile, hear her voice. Those are things one could never afford to forget. The collector then asked, almost cautiously, "Do you still have a spare skill slot?" The sage blinked, curious. "Because I've been saving something," the collector continued. "A skill unlike any other. I wasn't planning to sell it, not to anyone. But for you, I'd make an exception. This skill will let you watch over your grandson until your dying breath. No matter where he is, no matter what danger he faces, you'll be able to see, to protect, to guard." The sage's eyes widened. His heart pounded. Something like that exists. Then the cost must be immense. The collector nodded gravely. "It's unique. It's fixed at level 50. To obtain it, you'd have to give up everything, all your remaining wealth." But before the collector even finished, he saw the answer in the elder's face. The sage's eyes blazed with a fierce determination he had not shown in years. By now, the collector already knew. There was no hesitation. The deal was sealed. According to the boy, their newest member had insisted on joining the party. The other two adventurers muttered among themselves, puzzled. Why would someone want to join a small, untested group like theirs? Even the boy admitted he wasn't sure. Still, more allies were never a bad thing. Not far away, the collector sat on a bench, listening quietly. He already knew who was coming. Then the boy suddenly cried out, "Ah, here he comes." All eyes turned to see a young boy timidly approaching, clutching at his tunic as though trying to hold his nerves in place. He bowed his head slightly. "Sorry to keep you waiting," he said, his voice oddly formal. "My name is Lou. I promise I won't be a burden." For a moment, the group just stared in silence. Then, laughter burst out. "What's with the way you talk?" one of the adventurers snorted. "You sound like some old man." Even the sage's grandson chuckled, tilting his head. "Yeah, you talk exactly like my grandpa." Lou stiffened but managed a small smile. The boy clapped him on the shoulder. "Well, whatever. We're happy to have you with us." "Welcome to the party, Lou." From his seat, the collector watched the scene unfold, lips curving into a knowing smile. Looks like he pulled it off. The truth was simple. The skill he had sold to the sage was called Youthful Mask, a rare ability known only to exist among elves. At level 50, it could disguise the user's outward appearance, making them look as much as 50 years younger than their true age. Of course, it didn't actually restore youth. Beneath that boyish face, Lou was still the elder sage, body and mind carrying every scar and memory of his long life. But outwardly, he was just another bright-eyed recruit. The collector hadn't expected to hear such a raw, personal story from a man. Yet seeing him now, smiling faintly, standing among his grandson's companions, he felt a quiet satisfaction. The sage had found the skill he needed most, and that was enough. Rising from the bench, the collector resumed his journey. As he walked, he made a mental note: restock youthful mask. Seems it's more useful than I thought. Just then, a few steps ahead, a girl tripped and her basket tumbled to the ground. Bright flowers scattered across the cobblestone street, petals fluttering in the breeze. The poor girl stumbled forward and slipped right into the shallow canal with a splash. The collector quickly reached out, pulling her back to her feet. "Are you all right?" he asked. For a moment, their eyes met. Her cheeks flushed before she lowered her head. Sorry, and thank you," she murmured. A cough rattled her chest, thin and sharp. "It's fine. Things like this always happen to me." She glanced down her basket. The flowers she'd been carrying were now damp and streaked with dirt. Her expression wavered, half weary, half resigned. "But I still need to sell them, even like this." The collector looked at the flowers, then back at her. "They still look good enough to sell," he said calmly. Her eyes widened. Before she could reply, he added, "I'll buy them all." "Ah." She blinked, as though she hadn't heard right. "All of them? Are you serious?" "Yes," he nodded. "Every last one." Tears welled faintly in the corners of her eyes as she stammered out a thank you. She bent over the basket, hands trembling as she began to wrap the flowers carefully, as though the simple act of being bought meant the world to her. While she worked, the collector quietly appraised her. A strange chill went down his spine. Bad luck, sickliness, weak constitution. It was a cruel trio. In his travels, he had seen many unfortunate skills, but rarely such a relentlessly punishing combination. Her very body was frail. Misfortune clung to her. Yet to him, even skills like these had their uses, hidden value if placed in the right hands. He mentally noted to register them in his collection records. Her soft voice pulled him back. "I'm really glad, because with this, my little brother and sister can eat properly tonight." He froze. Siblings. Her words struck a memory buried deep inside him. He was small again, padding quietly through the house late at night. His sister was still awake, a candle flickering beside her. She had papers spread across the table, sketching intently. "You're still up?" he had whispered, worried. She had looked up with her usual smile, shaking her head. "I'm fine. I just wanted to finish some drawings to sell. Sorry if I woke you." The young collector had frowned, guilt washing over him. He wished, more than anything, that he could help, that he wasn't so useless. That memory lingered, overlapping with the girl's faint smile as she carefully bundled the flowers. What the young girl said tugged at something deep in the collector's chest. Her words brought back the days when he and his sister struggled in much the same way, scraping by, sharing what little they had, wishing for just one stroke of luck. Without a word, he reached into his coat and pulled out a thick wad of cash. The girl's eyes widened, and she instantly began waving her hands in panic. Wait, that's far too much. I can't take that." But the collector only shook his head, his expression firm. "It's not even half of what I earned today. Think of it as me sharing a bit of good fortune." Her lips trembled, caught between protest and gratitude. Finally, she pressed her hands together and bowed her head. "Then thank you, truly." He handed her the money. The moment their hands touched, a faint glow bloomed between them. The girl gasped softly, staring at the golden shimmer. "What was that?" she asked, bewildered. "Just a little good luck charm," the collector replied casually, as though it were nothing. Her smile bloomed, fragile but bright. "Then I'll treasure it." "No," he corrected gently, watching her walk away with the basket. "I should be the one thanking you." Because unbeknownst to her, the deal had been sealed. He had acquired her 3 troublesome skills: bad luck, sickliness, and weak constitution, all for a sum that still felt far too cheap. And to balance the scales, he had sold her something precious in return: good luck, a skill she would never realize came from him, but one he hoped would change her life in quiet ways. The collector lifted the bundle of flowers he now carried. They were a little soiled, petals bruised, but the fragrance still clung stubbornly to them. A faint smile touched his lips. "Maybe I'll bring flowers next time. My friend might like that." The following day, the market was busy as ever, and the collector busied himself among the stalls. He carefully selected necessities, stocking up on food and supplies. The season was growing colder, so he made sure to purchase medicine as well. By the end, both his hands were heavy with bags, perhaps more than his friend expected, but he didn't mind. For him, small gestures carried weight, and for the people he cared about, even burdens felt lighter. Just then, someone called out to him. The collector turned to see a familiar face, the lady from whom he had bought the monster attraction skill a few days ago. "Oh, it's you," she greeted, hurrying over with a bright smile. The collector tilted his head. "How have things been?" Her eyes practically sparkled as she answered. So much better. The monster stopped showing up right after you took that troublesome skill. Thanks to that, I finally had the time to stock up on ingredients. And now, she tugged him along eagerly before he could protest. As promised, her inn had a new addition, a warm, bustling diner on the ground floor. The savory scent of food drifted out as she proudly showed him around. It's really happening, she said, voice trembling with happiness. My dream of running my own place has finally come true. And it's all thanks to you. The collector stayed quiet, letting her words sink in. Her gratitude was genuine, washing over him with a brightness he wasn't used to. As always, he told himself he was simply glad to help, but her happiness was infectious. She beamed at him, then added playfully, actually, I'm looking for staff right now. You'd look great in an apron, you know, serving customers with that serious face of yours. Before he could decline, she slipped a job flyer among his belongings. He gave her a wry smile and shook his head. I'm afraid I'm already too busy with my collector's service. Oh, what a shame. She sighed dramatically, then waved him off with cheerful determination. I'll just have to find someone else then. After she left, the collector glanced down at the flyer. A part-time job, huh? He mused. For a moment, he considered offering it to his friend, but quickly dismissed the thought. That friend wasn't exactly suited to bustling places filled with people. Just then, a familiar sight caught his eye. It was the flower girl, the unlucky one from before. She was still selling flowers, standing by her small basket. Two children approached her at once, bickering loudly. I got here first, one declared. But I've got the money, the other argued back. The girl only laughed softly, and instead of choosing sides, split a bouquet in half. She placed a portion in each of their hands, patting their heads with sisterly affection. You both did such a good job running errands. Here, this way, no one goes home empty-handed. The collector remembered then, she had said she was caring for a little brother and sister. Watching her now, patient and kind despite her frail appearance, he couldn't help but think she was perfectly suited for dealing with customers. He approached her. Could I buy a bouquet? Her eyes lit up instantly. It's you, she exclaimed. The buyer from the other day. The collector blinked, a little surprised. You remembered? Of course I do, she replied, smiling wide. You made me so happy back then, buying all those flowers. For a moment, the collector found himself quietly admiring her persistence, her warmth despite the unlucky hand she'd been dealt. She handed him a fresh bouquet, and as he accepted it, he slipped the diner flyer into her hands. Her eyes widened. A job? Yes, he said simply. They're looking for staff. You might be a good fit. Excitement lit her face, so different from the weary expression she wore the day before. Clutching the flyer to her chest, she nodded eagerly. Thank you. I'll go check it out right away. The collector gave the faintest smile.